But I also want to know more about your firm and the type of work that you do, because like for us, from a technology perspective, we can walk into a home and we can look at the sort of things with wires, and we can point at the lights, and we can go behind the scenes and look at the panels and all that stuff. But to me, like, there's so much magic in terms of creating a feel, right? I mean, and I think sometimes when you look at the magazines and you can kind of see the feel that you're going for, and actually I myself am just starting up, hopefully, a new project that, a renovation of a 1950s home. And we're going through a lot of these, a lot of these sort of like interesting questions,
Right,
like
right.
how do you make a home feel a certain way, and maybe to a certain degree this is like a 3-hour conversation about sort of what you do, but I guess in the way that technology affects it, but also like in general, the sort of that design narrative that you're trying to create with spaces for these clients, many of them that have quite a bit of money that they want to spend on a legacy home, something they really want to leave for the generations. I mean, how do you approach that? It's more than just, of course, the design formula. It's like really getting to know the clients, right?
Yeah, the getting to know the clients and the listening is really the most critical thing of all. And I would say, as residential designers and architects, we love that deep dive into, who are you, how do you want to live,
Right.
and how does that look?
Right.
I was just saying to someone previously that, we sort of pride ourselves on actually not having one particular highly defined style.
Right.
And the reason for that is that we like to really get to know our clients, dive deep into their lives and their preferences and lifestyle
Right.
and future considerations. I mean, all of it,
Right.
really, and say, okay, we want to help you build this vision and then manifest this vision.
Right. Right.
And what's exciting about that to me is that, of course, every client and therefore every project is very, very different.
Right.
There are different series of challenges. There are different series of desires and wishes. And it's sort of a wonderful process, though, to be able to have those conversations and then get to the heart of like, okay, now we understand
Right.
what this needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we're pretty good at it. But it's it's a wonderful process when we really can like bring that vision to life.
Right. Right. And do you find that clients, because I mean, many of these clients are private in many ways, right? I mean, they're and I find this particularly in New England. They're not ostentatious. They're not about sort of showing off wealth or
Right,
anything.
not at all.
Yeah, and which is great, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I love that. I couldn't run my business in New York or the Hamptons even. I feel like it's a very different sort of culture there and a different type of clientele. But do you ever find that clients are sort of resistant to that process of getting to know them? Because it's got to be a bit personal, right?
Sometimes people take a little more warming up
Right.
in the process than others, but usually, again, it's just with a very, I guess, calm and intentional way of getting to know them.
Right.
And building trust, of course, is essential.
Yeah.
And for us, I think we've of course identified that the best way to do that is really to listen and be really attentive and ask the right questions.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's mostly about asking the right questions and then building upon that. And then usually we get into a very good rapport and space where there is mutual trust, and therefore we really can ask those important questions that are ultimately gonna define the home.
Right.
And all the choices that are made.
And do you ever run into situations where you're dealing with like an owner's rep, or you're not really dealing, like you're dealing with sort of the staff or kind of a house manager, and these types of things where, because we've run into that situation as well, particularly on the technical side, I think, because the technical side doesn't seem very personal, right? It doesn't seem like we need to get to know the owner. That in a lot of cases we're coming in and sort of, okay, you can talk to the owner's rep about what we need for this giant addition and the technology in it.
Right.
And ultimately it's difficult for us, I think, to kind of execute on the basis of sort of secondhand knowledge. Okay, well, this person wants this person would like this. there's a certain thing that we can deliver with that. But I do feel like in order for us to be truly effective, we need to have those conversations with the people that are going to live there, right?
I completely agree.
Right.
And I find the same challenges. And certainly there are those situations where you need to manage to that challenge or
Right.
manage to that sort of one half step removed sort of
Right.
relationship
Right.
and conversation. But yeah, my preference, of course, is always to be working directly with the homeowner.
Right. Is that something that you have to sort of draw a line with in terms of the business that you accept or try to get, in the sense that, like, look, we can't do it if we're at an arm's length? Because I can imagine interiors especially so personal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the short answer is yes.
Right.
I think that, again, we have really enjoyed, and it is definitely our intention to, always have a relationship that, again, is built on really getting to know the client and they're getting to know us. And so, yeah, I think there are times we definitely have to say, this is not the way we work, and
Right.
we're so sorry.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think it's hard to do in business sometimes, to say no, and
It is.
and especially to a client that's saying, I'm very happy to pay you lots of money for a service, but
Right.
ultimately it is a matter of sort of understanding that they're the best client for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you asked me sort of what trends were happening on the technology side, and I'll ask you as well, from an interiors perspective, what you're seeing, because, like I mentioned earlier, we have this potential project ourselves, and so now suddenly all the magazines come out and the Pinterest board is out with all of these different ideas. So what are you seeing on your side of things that's really changing or trending?
Some exciting things. I think, people are more and more starting to understand just how important the home environment is.
Right.
I don't know what has made that happen. I mean, I think, again, a combination of things, COVID being one of them.
Right.
I just think also more of an awareness around architecture and design has made people just generally more interested in it. And I think that has led to people sort of understanding that, wow, actually, how my home environment is built
Right.
really matters in terms of how I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a home and there's, the unused room that's for storage or something, and they'll walk into the room and they'll say, well, this is kind of our storage, kind of dumping ground space, and we're not really sure why it became that. We're not sure why we don't use this space. And, more times than not, I can step one foot in the room and say, I know exactly why you've never liked this room.
Right.
And usually it's a big factor is lighting.
Right.
It's dark. There's no ambient light in the ceiling plane.
Right.
I mean, in the design world, in design and architecture, we really talk about layers of light, for example, and how important that is, having sort of a human scale, reachable light, like a sconce or a wall light,
Right.
as well as having your ambient light overhead, and then, of course, the importance of good task lighting.
Yeah.
I mean, again, not really a trend, but a development or more of a movement into ADA compliant or aging in place spaces has become hugely important. I mean, of course, people are living both longer and healthier lives into their older years, and many people want to be at home and age in place, and so an eye towards how can we create both technologies and systems to have in place, as well as a very particular and refined eye towards the design that not only will make it a very comfortable and livable environment, but a safe environment.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, both the design and the technology side feeds into that hugely.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, security systems, the ability to remotely control your heating, your lighting from someplace else, and just having the peace of mind of that. If the homeowner has multiple homes, for example.
Right.
Another area we're seeing a lot of expanding interest in is sort of the European wet room concept for bathrooms.
Cool.
So of course, kind of the spa bathroom has
Right.
always been popular, but more and more people are understanding that, yeah, it's really nice and it's really comfortable to, for example, step out of the shower and then go right to a soaking tub.
Right.
And
Right.
having a really spacious, integrated, beautiful room
Right.
where all of that is very fluid
Right.
and easy to manage. And of course, that wet room concept actually also aligns with some of the aging in place considerations. Because it often means, curbless, you're not, doing a big transition in the flooring.
Right, yeah.
And, so all of these things we're seeing a lot more of and are things that we're much more aware of. So it's become much more common, therefore, for us to, for example, talk about those considerations about, are you going to be here for 20 more years?
Right.
And if so, let's talk about some of those things that we can incorporate now that will just make it so much easier and more comfortable to be here as you age.
Right.